and welcome to WEC Talk, the podcast from the FIA World Endurance Championship. I'm Martin Haven. In this episode, we catch up with our race director, Eduardo Freitas. We hear from AF Corse's team manager, Batti Pregliasco, and in Q&A, one of their top drivers, world champion James Calado, answers your questions. And of course, we join our Louise Beckett for the Beckett Briefing. Our first guest today is the voice that the drivers, the teams and the fans hear during World Endurance Championship races. He is race director Eduardo Freitas. Eduardo, how are you?
Well, confined at home like everyone else in Europe, but so far so good.
Where did your involvement in motorsport start? What was the beginning of the path?
Let's go back to the 70s, because in fact that's where it starts. I've always liked to do things with my hands, okay? And two-stroke engines was a big passion at the time. So I was helping my friends with the scooters, the mopeds, as you call them in English. And one day, one of them said, listen, since you like so much two-stroke engines, why not a karting engine? Well, I was not very much into motorsports at the time. I would see the odd Grand Prix on TV. And I said, why not? Let's give it a go. And so I started helping in a karting team, and I was one of the mechanics, pushing around all day, trying to invent things because money wasn't available, so we needed to use a lot of imagination to build spare parts ourselves. Like, for example, the numbers in the front, you would have to get at the time, when people used to develop films in the photographic shops, the tanks, which the chemicals come inside, they have a good plastic, and the color was ideal to do the background of the number. So one would need to have a lot of creativity. And so it went, and in 1979, I was going to buy a chassis from Martin Heinz, the late Martin Heinz, from Zipkart. And I saw the World Championship in Estoril, won by Peter de Koon, if my memory is not tricking me. Senna raced in that race, in that weekend. So did Cathy Muller. A few names at the time that nobody knew. And I saw the race from the grandstand on top of Marshall Post 2. And I said to myself, there must be something more interesting in motorsport than being the whole time fiddling with my hands. I like the idea of being outside, the idea of communicating via flags and all that. And I said, why not? And in fact, my first job was on the Monday after the World Championship in Estoril, dismantling the karting track, because it used to be a track which the main straight was on the main straight of the car track. So that was my first job as a marshal in 22nd or 24th of September 1979. And from then on, it's just the virus came in quite strong, still affected. The good virus, let's put it like that. And from then on, it started. I was a marshal trainee. I remember my first race as a marshal trainee was a 300-kilometer race on motorcycles. There's the main grandstand in Estoril. I was at the south edge of that grandstand, and it was starting like Le Mans, with all the motorcycles with the tail to the pit wall. And when the race started, I said to myself, maybe this is not what you want, because everyone was facing me. About 60 motorcycles all aiming at you. Where do I run for? And that's how it started. So I went through all the steps from being a trainee marshal all the way to chief post marshal, section marshal, general security marshal, did a lot of Formula One testing, which I was responsible in Estoril, and went up the ladder, let's put it like that, in karting, hill climbs, motorcycles. I did everything which was available for me to do it because I liked the sport itself. And then FIA GT comes to Portugal in 2000. 2001, I had a hell of a fight with Jürgen Barth because of the Parc Fermé after the race. It was really tough talks, let's put it like that. We nearly came to a bad end there. And in February 2002, I get a phone call in the morning, and there was Mr. Barth, and I said to myself, the race is only in October, why is he already on my back? And the invitation popped up if I wanted to be race director for the FIA GT and European Touring Car Championship at the time. So that's how the big step was given to the FIA. So Roland was doing it before me, but he had a good deal with the DTM, and he was not capable of doing all the GT races and all the touring car races. And I said, okay, I'll take it. And he said, listen, this is just for 1 year. So if you don't mind, you step in for 1 year. And so I did. I stepped in for 1 year. And I'm still around. Let's put it like that. So then later on, ETCC became WTCC. I got the news in the last race of the ETCC in Dubai, 2004. And Marcello comes to me, well, you know that we're going for a world championship. And I said, well, I'm happy for you. Very proud to see the championship has grown up. I wish you all the luck. And he says, well, but aren't you coming along? I said, nah, come on. You'll be our race director. I didn't sleep that night because having the responsibility of a world championship from the FIA on my back, I didn't sleep that night. The rest of the day was totally down the drain. I postponed one of the driver's briefing. I was so excited with the idea. And then I did WTCC until 2009. Then I changed to the World GT1 Championship, which I did 2010, 2011. In the meantime, the championship disappeared. And in the end of 2011, Gerard invited me to, if I was available, to do the World Endurance Championship. So here I am. I've been increasing the length of the races as time has evolved. So I'll have to find something after this stage, which has 40-hour races. That's the only chance I have.
So very much like a racing driver's career, you start small and humble, and the more you get infected by the passion, the longer you're doing it, the more you know, the more your responsibilities come.
It's an advantage, because asking something to the marshals, which I know it's feasible because it's possible to do, it's a different reality from someone who has never been a track marshal asking for something. People joke a lot about the full course yellow in Mexico because of the baseball, which went on track. And again, the experience of being a marshal there played significantly. Although in TV it looked like a 10-meter run from the line and from the opening, reality on track was quite different. And when we look at the time which the marshal took from jumping the guardrail to picking up the ball and getting back into safety, there was no other chance of doing it. One could press the marshals to do it at the World Championship level. They will, with their volunteer, let's put it like that, they will do it. But one is creating risks and exposing them to risks which are totally unnecessary. So it helps me a lot in my deciding process, understanding how they look at it. How do you see it, and what are the contingencies? If you have a guardrail with an FIA fence immediately behind it, or if there is a 2-meter gap to the fence, the getting out of the track is quicker. So there are things which help me in my analyzing of the situation. The key point of the equation is always the safety. Okay, then we build on that. Is it safe to do it? Yes or no? No, then what can we do to make it safe? Basically, that's how the equation has to be managed. Safety, then the sporting regulations, then the show. Let's put it like that. So if something is jeopardizing safety, hold on, we need to stop. We need to find a solution to put this back into a safety rail. Once it's on a safety, then you can do whatever you want.
What's your prime concern on race day? Where do you start?
It normally starts on Monday with a weather forecast. It's something that, it's now 1 year ago, we were in Spa. That one is well engraved in my memory. That was a tough one. Race control worked quite well. The team worked quite well. And the drivers themselves, they understood exactly that because a piece of snow or a piece of hail is falling, you don't need to halt everything. But the race day starts on the Monday looking at the weather forecast. If the weather is good, you tend to ignore the weather forecast. You go to the other things. If not, that's something which occupies a lot your mind. You have to take into consideration Japan with the tail of the hurricanes, that we had to adapt the timetable to suit what we needed. It was an excellent choice, which was done at the time. So once the weather part is taken away, we take care of checking the circuit. I normally, if it's a circuit I'm going for the first time, I normally walk it to make sure that even I know where the openings are. It's a different feeling from looking at the map or looking at TV. Okay, then I tend to drive the circuit a few times. If it's the first one, then I'll take the first opportunity I can to go with Yannick on track so that he can explain me the circuit itself, so that you start being able to, as a driver memorizes it, I need to memorize it within my possibilities as much as possible, because I never raced myself. So you need to buy a lot of information from the other people which are involved. So then we do the inspections, we do briefings, we do meetings with the local officials to explain exactly what we want from the regulations point of view, how the championship is, where the fights will be, which are the cars which have given us problems in the past, which are the drivers which have given us problems in the past, so that instead of being just me surveilling, then I can have a whole group of people which is looking at it. Because 2 eyes see one thing, 100 eyes will see much more. So it's part of the team concept I give to my way of managing the races. Then we do the driver's briefing, which is the only moment of the weekend where you can address problems to the drivers. I'm not very much, unless there is something really nasty which happened. I don't like to go through what happened in the previous races. I prefer to dedicate my time to what's going to happen there and what do I expect them. It's bullet points and highlight the ones which are more critical. Try to explain to them my point of view and where do I have more facilities. So you give them details of what you are expecting from them. Then we go for the race itself. It's always a tough moment. It always hurts your stomach, let's put it like that. It's like you're going to an exam. The feeling is like that since the first race I did until quota this year. It's always that same odd feeling on the night. You try to anticipate as much as possible what's going to happen. You try to build scenarios. What's happened here in the previous years? Where did it go wrong? Where could I have improved it? It's a complex moment. Then the start of the race, everyone else is relaxed. That's when I'm really over-revving. The blood pressure should be on the high 30s, I would estimate. I never try to measure. It's a very tense moment. Don't forget, take Le Mans. You've got 62 cars in a bunch if something goes wrong. We're very fortunate in WEC and even in the LMS. We do not have a lot of T1 incidents. So they tend to behave themselves and they understand it's an endurance race. It's not a touring car race in Macau, with all due respect. It's two different philosophies. So we put the race running. The first 10 laps, it's always tense. Because although it's endurance, between the classes, it's a sprint race, which changes with the length of the race. But it's sprint. Even Le Mans is a 24-hour sprint from lights to flags. So then the cars start getting separated. Okay, the groups are made. That gives me more or less 2 laps to understand what happened at the start, see the replays. In the meantime, the broadcaster will provide me with drone images in the countries where we can fly to analyze what happened at the start. Here I count with the work from the stewards, which is a key point in the whole setup. At the end of the day, my work goes well when everyone else works well. If a track marshal is not well, I'm not well. If a team manager has a problem, I have a problem. At the end of the day, this is all about teamwork. And we're all in the same boat. Each one has its different roles. So we need to have everyone rowing and pulling the boat to the same side. It's a challenge.
Let's wait and see what we have later on this season in terms of motor racing. Until then, Eduardo, thank you so much for your time. Look forward to hearing your voice on the radio as soon as we can.
I'm not looking forward to my voice, but I'm looking forward to have all that technology in front of me. It's been too long since COTA, and my wife has done a superb job keeping me at home, which has been, we've never been together for so long since we met. It's amazing, huh? With all the traveling, it's really amazing. But anyway, I'm really looking forward to go back on track, see the marshals, see the team, see the drivers, get the noise back, get everything back. I miss it and I need it.
Let's head over to Italy now, to AF Corse, one of the biggest racing operations on the planet, and talk to team manager Batti Pregliasco. Batti, how are you?
We are I'm good, personally, very good, and we are all good. Thanks God. Luckily, we are not affected as a team. No members were sick, even if we were really all around the world when the virus was spread. And we were in Sebring, we were in Asia Pacific, we were in Australia, we were all around the world, and we came back home, and we are all safe. So this is the first point. That is, we are very lucky. In some championships, the car stays in a local area, in a local workshop. But the personnel is all from Italy, not only from Italy, French. We have some Spain people. We have people from all around the Europe. But basically, we are all from near Piacenza, center of the North Italy, near Milan. So this is the first point, the first problem, because of course we need to move and we need to take plane. We need to have a permission, and this is the first question mark we have now. We are linked to Ferrari, so at the first part is the car, and the spare part that is from Ferrari and Michelotto. So basically, this should not be a big issue, because we are very close, and when we can restart from, of course, Ferrari, Michelotto, and all the other suppliers from Italy will start as well. And we need to consider that when we had the first lockdown, it was in the end of February. We already made all the investment for all the season, because we signed contract. We were ready to run, and I tell you, 70% of the investment for the season was already done. And this is also the problem, because we really want and hope that the season will start.
Put a number for me on the number of cars that you have racing, or that you would have had racing this season. Are we talking about 10, 20, 30 cars? How many?
And you can go up. Now, okay. We are many. So I'm one of the team manager that work for Corse. So I basically I follow WEC, LMS, and the long distance races, and the 24-hour. So just for that, we have 7 cars in the WEC. We were ready to run other 8 cars in between Michelin Cup and the ELMS, and we were supposed to run 10 cars in Le Mans, 24-hour. Then we have Blancpain, we have Italian GT, British GT, Asian Pacific Challenge, Italian Challenge, European Challenge, and UK Challenge. So we are around 70 cars in a season that we manage and we run.
Let's talk about the remainder of the World Endurance Championship season. Hopefully, we'll be heading to Spa in August, then Le Mans in September, and that's going to be a very different race. Does that put extra strain on the team, on the drivers, on the car?
For sure. The engineer are already sending me mails and mails and mails, and well, what we can do for that, what can we do for that. I know that start of the race maybe will be a little bit earlier, to let all the people drive the first part of the race with more light. At least I hope so, because it's very important. For sure, is a change on the lot of the strategy, the temperature, the darkness. It will be a tough 24-hour for sure. It will be a little bit different from the usual. Maybe will be a lot of more rain, maybe the darkness, the temperature. So it will be another question mark. But as you know, the 24-hour Le Mans is a very special race, very difficult, very complicated. And at that point, it will be the same for everybody. For sure, for the gentleman driver, it will be a little bit more tough because in the darkness. But for the professional driver, I think it will be the same. It will be a tough work for the engineers to set up the car, to have the soft tires more maybe than the medium, to prepare for use of the soft tires maybe during also a part of the day. It will be a question mark also, and we wait now the supplementary regulation for Le Mans understand which kind of tire heater we can use, because maybe in that condition also the blanket will be maybe a good help for the GT also, because for the P1 is already allowed. We will have to see which kind of strategy we can have on track, but will be part of the game, so it will be part of the sport, and it's not worrying. The important is to start to make the race.
Drivers always say that Le Mans has a very special place. Is it the same for engineers? Is it the biggest challenge you have all year?
For sure. The 24-hour Le Mans is one of the toughest races I ever did. It's very complicated, very demanding, very stressful. You prepare this race 1 year from the other. You start working on the logistics, on the preparation, on the setup from January till June. That is not the case this year, but okay. 6 months of preparation. Then you arrive there is all one day after the other. From the test day, you have a lot of work to do to rebuild the car completely, to prepare for the scrutineering, and then you start working like crazy day and night, because the timetable is very demanding, and you stop the practice every night at midnight. So you go to bed very late, and in the morning you know that even if you can sleep a little bit more because there is no activity on the track, then you come back in the morning because you have so much thing to do and to prepare. It's very demanding, and then it arrives the race. The starting day is very complicated because you have the warm up in the morning. So you wake up anyway at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and you don't go to bed until Sunday night once everything is finished, if it's finished, luckily. But and then there is the scrutineering if it's going all good like you hope, and that's how it's very, very long race, and physically is very strong, very difficult, and psychologically is very demanding and stressful. So the pressure is huge. If you do in GTM, GT Pro, LMP1 or MP2, is the same, because it is the event of the year, is the most important race of the season. So everybody wants to do the best and succeed in the checkered flag for sure, and maybe when you're lucky in the podium, that is a very big satisfaction.
And luck is always such a part of it, isn't it? Well, we look forward to September, hopefully at Le Mans, to see exactly who Lady Luck will smile on. Meanwhile, all the best to you, Batti, and to everybody at AF Corse, and hopefully we'll be able to see you again in the paddock once we get racing underway.
Thank you so much. I hope so.
Time now for the Beckett Briefing to catch up with what's been happening in the WEC world in the last couple of weeks. It's a very warm welcome to Louise Beckett.
Hello, Martin. Well, firstly, we should say, and it's a bit of a back reference to a previous podcast, that Jota have now got a BSI certification, which means they can now produce 1,000 protective equipment, PPE, every day, which is amazing considering they were at 70 when you last spoke to them.
That's fantastic news, isn't it? Not just for the healthcare professionals that they'll be helping out, but also for the guys in the team, because it gives them a chance to feel like they're contributing to fighting this virus. And that's got to be great for everybody's frame of mind.
Absolutely. And I should just say, obviously, we do know that other teams are doing that as well, but that was just news out this week, which was really good to see. I don't know also if you have seen the At Home with the WEC. Have you seen these little features?
I do like a bit of a sneaky peek through the keyhole. So yes, that has attracted my attention.
You, Tinker, you. I do like to have a little snoop around people's houses, and this is the perfect opportunity.
Well, it's great, isn't it? You know, a little bit of a guided tour. So you you get a little bit more of a sense of who the guys are, don't you? And what their life's all about. And suddenly I think they're finding that, you know, we know there's more to life than motor racing, but they're rediscovering other parts of it.
Oh, yes. And, you know, I didn't realise we had such a musical bunch. We've got Davide Regon, who's rediscovering his love for playing the piano. Brendan Hartley, he bought a guitar because he knew there was going to be lockdown, so he was forward thinking. And they're really quite good from what I've heard and from these little features that we're seeing.
It's fantastic, isn't it? Just a chance to sort of spread that openness that we feel in the paddock all the time, where people are so welcoming to us, to be able to allow the fans a little bit of a look inside.
Absolutely, yeah. And also we should say this week that the Italians have finally been allowed out. They've been in lockdown since the 9th of March. And I don't know about you, but it's so lovely to see some of the clips from people in Italy that are finally being able to reunite with loved ones. It's so nice to see.
Yeah, since we've spoken, you know, Italy and Spain as well have both been freed up a little bit. So I know an awful lot of families have been living in apartments with maybe only a balcony and not able to go out and exercise. So yeah, again, for their physical well-being, but especially for their mental well-being, that's great news. And it does hopefully start to indicate the fact that things are starting to loosen up a little bit, and maybe we are on an upward path.
You've got James Calado up next, haven't you, Martin?
Yes, earlier in the week on social media, we asked for questions. What do you want to know? What do you want James to answer? And we've got a few of those we're going to put to him. So a little bit of fun, but again, a little chance for fans to react with the drivers. And hopefully that's something that we'll be able to continue in the podcasts as the season goes on.
I love that idea. I'm really intrigued to hear what they ask and what he says.
Well, the teams and the drivers are so forthcoming to us, and the fans never get the chance. No, just ask him this. Well, here's the chance. Absolutely. So look out for that in the next week. We're running up to our next podcast on the 23rd of May. So until then, Louise Beckett, goodbye, be safe and have fun and rediscover an old skill.
Take care. Bye.
Time now to ask a world champion your questions. James Calado is the man in the hot seat. So our first question from Fabien Gauthier at Gauthier V12. He says, "Hi James, motorsport was at the beginning a British family story. What's it like to be part of the Scuderia Ferrari and to join so many Brits who have raced for it, like Hawthorne, Collins, Brooks, Lewis Evans, and more recently, of course, Nigel Mansell?"
Yeah, hi Fabien. Yeah, I think firstly, I feel very lucky to be part of what is such a prestigious, historic team. It was amazing when I first got the drive. I felt really lucky because I've always been a huge fan of Ferrari, you know, the Formula One team, the GT cars, even the road cars. So to get that and to be able to win with them a world championship and Le Mans is truly an amazing achievement. And, you know, every time I'm in Maranello, I feel like I'm at home. It's my family. Everyone knows each other. You see all these guys walking around in red, and it's just truly magical. It's really hard to put it into words. But like I say, I feel extremely lucky to be part of this amazing team.
Question from Jellybean Schwai. He says, "What is the most awkward moment in a WEC race in a car?"
Most awkward moment. Well, I've got to say it's not easy when you're fighting with your teammate and you make contact with your teammate. Not that it's really happened in a severe way, but sometimes, you know, you can argue with your teammates because at the end of the day, we're racing drivers and we're fighting for that first place. I know it's very much a team sport, especially endurance and WEC. But, you know, occasionally it does happen. And when you're sat in the debrief rooms, it can be a little bit awkward at times. But, I mean, touch wood, it's not really happened to me yet.
Okay, we're going to have to edit this a little. This is from Cooley8. What was your biggest moment you've ever had?
My biggest beep moment? It really was a big beep as well. It was Le Mans 2014, my first Le Mans, and I went through Porsche curves, the double left, absolutely flat out. It was in the 458 in quali, first time I ever attempted it, and unfortunately failed big time. I was traveling way over 100 miles per hour, and I went towards that wall thinking I was going to die. It was the worst feeling ever, and ultimately didn't race that weekend. I was in hospital with a brain hemorrhage, but I just remember seeing this concrete wall coming up, and I just thought, oh no, this is going to hurt. But lucky to be here still, and so far not really anything like that's happened since.
Finally then, from Life of Liliana, this might be the toughest one actually. What's been your hardest fought win?
My hardest fought win, I've got to say Le Mans last year. Why? Because there was such a big field of competitive drivers. I think it was 18 pro cars. Ford, Ferrari, all the big manufacturers, and we basically were in a sprint race for 24 hours, swapping positions with pretty much all the manufacturers, and I think we only won the race by 11 seconds. So that was definitely the hardest one, the most stressful. I remember the last 10 minutes of that race were the worst time of my life, literally just waiting for it to end. But we got the win, and it just made that win even more special.
That's it for this WEC Talk, the podcast from the FIA World Endurance Championship. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time, where our guest will be Pierre Fillon of the ACO. He'll talk to us about plans for Le Mans in September and the latest rules that have just been released for the Le Mans Daytona Hybrid class. That's in 2 weeks' time on Friday, May the 22nd. Until then, stay safe and thanks for listening.